This video covers the ALEKS topic, square roots of a perfect square monomial. Now, before we take square roots of perfect square monomials, there are a few skills that we need to get in our toolbox first. So, simplifying square roots of variables. So, for example, the square root of x squared would be x, right? And this makes sense because x times x is x squared. And we know square roots undo squares. But how do we handle the square root of x to the fourth? Like, what multiplied by itself gives us x to the fourth? How about x squared times x squared, right? So this pattern actually repeats itself. Notice how I divided 4 in half into 2, right, to undo the square root, right? So the rule is if the exponent is even, you divide it by 2. So the square root of x to the fourth is x squared, right? The square root of x to the sixth is x cubed. The square root of x to the 20th, right, would be x to the 10th because x to the 10th times x to the 10th gives us x to the 20th. And this is that product rule for exponents, correct, right? Thinking way back. If you aren't certain or feeling confident about working with exponents, please go back, watch the videos that are earlier on this playlist. So let's solve some examples. The square root of 18, that's going to be 18 divided by 2, which is 9. The square root of x to the 8th is going to be x to the 4th. 8 divided by 2 is 4. The square root of x to the 10th is going to be x to the 5th. 10 divided by 2 is 5, right? So that's the first skill we need, is to know how to take square roots and simplify variables. Next, we need to know the product rule for square roots. So if a and b are real numbers, and n is a natural number, here we're using the square roots. If I take the square root of a times the square root of b, that's going to be the square root of a times b, right? The root is a product. The root of a product is the product of the roots, right? So I could have the square root of 2 times the square root of x. That'd be the square root of 2x. I could have the square root of 4 times the square root of x squared. That would be the square root of 4x squared, which is 2x, right? So that's how we're going to use the product rule for square roots. Now we're ready to simplify square roots of perfect square monomials. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square root of the coefficient and then the square root of the variable part. So the square root of 49 is 7. The square root of x to the 18th we already said was x to the 9th. The square root of 4 is 2. The square root of x to the 8th is x to the 4th. The square root of 64 is 8. The square root of 10 is x to the